A quick note before we get into the episode. Oversharing is a podcast for entertainment purposes only. It is not a medical podcast and does not constitute medical or psychological advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or mental health professional. Let's do some intentions. Okay. Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. I'm writing in with an intention request that I hope will be able to help me and many other listeners as well. I constantly find myself grabbing for my cell phone in the idle moments of my life. Send an email, pick up cell phone, get off a meeting, open up Instagram. This year, I really want to be more intentional in being in the moment and stopping the muscle memory that is constantly picking up my cell phone. I'm finding it becoming way too much of a habit, and I find myself feeling overstimulated at the end of the day. Curious to hear your thoughts around this and hopefully an intention to help. Thank you for reading.
Love this. We do this in groups. Like this was one of our challenges, and it was very specifically like writing down what are you looking to feel when you pick up your cell phone? Like not only just pausing, but pausing and asking yourself that question. What am I seeking right now? Safety? Is it excitement? Is it confirmation about myself, my worth? Is it checking something off a list?
Maybe I feel like for me, a lot of the time, it's just like, I don't want to like just being distracted from your own thoughts or boredom or like
boredom.
I want, something to entertain me in this moment.
I agree. I mean, whenever we do the challenges in group, I do the challenge together with the group members. And I found that you don't realize how often you're like, cannot tolerate just sitting with a quiet mind. Like just that pull to keep feeding yourself more and more and more. And after you recognize that it's happening, like she says, muscle memory, it really is just like this very automatic pickup. It's like pickup for no reason because your mind has trouble being still and being quiet. I think it's only getting worse with this new generation that's coming up in this world of just being able to tolerate boredom. So I think that if for you it's boredom, I think it's once you notice that, just kind of being like, boredom is good for me. Like I need to sit in this.
Yeah, I think maybe that's it. Like when you just said that, and I immediately said how. Like I do think you talked about like what's motivating for you. It's like a feeling that something will actually make a difference in some way. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's when I'm like probably 90% of the people listening also guilty of this. And I think that it's because sometimes I'll think about the fact that I'm constantly on my phone, but then I'm like, well, what am I going to get by not being on it?
Yeah.
And I don't think the motivation is that clear.
Yeah.
Or like it would take a really long time to like fully change your brain chemistry. So it's not so obvious. Like the reward is a little bit intangible, and
it is until you try it. And it's almost like you need the lived experience of it to see what that feels like. I mean, in the group, we did like 24 hours phone free, but I think even just and it comes back so quickly, right? That's the problem. It's an addiction. And the addiction isn't just to the phone. The addiction is what you're describing is to the feeding your brain something. Mm-hmm. Like you're addicted to constantly feeding your senses and your mind with something to think about or worry about or fix or plan for.
Right. But like, what do you get if you do that? I guess that's okay.
So I'll say you are anxious about your pregnancy. You will see that get better because you're not feeding it. You're learning to just process the information that's already there instead of constantly feeding yourself new information that then your brain has to process. And that does present itself as anxiety or rumination. And you get to almost learn, it's like an addiction. You think, you need to drink alcohol every weekend because you kind of look forward to it and it's something to do. And it's like going to change it up a little bit. When I get drunk, it's going to be like my thing that I get to kind of do on the weekends or after work or whatever it is. And then after you don't give into it for a while, you get to experience that like quiet mind, or maybe some creativity comes, because if you're constantly consuming, you're not creating. You're not giving yourself space to create because you're like consuming instead of creating. So one, I think you can be more creative. And two, I think you can just give yourself, your brain, speaking of like insomnia and resting and all of this, you're like giving your brain more time spent in rest mode instead of processing mode. Which I think with not even a lot of time, like a lot of people will notice just a calmness after 24 hours screen free. Or you might notice, I don't know, like I do this too. And it might not be as much social media, but like my email. I'm like more addicted to my email because I'm always kind of like, I'm going to make sure I close that tab. I want to make sure I finish that thing. I want to, not leave anything because that's where my anxiety, maybe I didn't answer somebody, or maybe like I said, I asked my group members to reach out to me and then I don't want to feel like
they're not getting answered.
Right? Yeah. That I'm leaving them feeling abandoned or I'm not answering them. Or so I'll find myself like sometimes at a red light, like pick up and check my email. And I'm like, why am I checking my email? In the 30 seconds of like peace that I have here of just being like, I'm just going to sit here and like allow my mind to be quiet and be present and then as soon as I catch myself doing that, that's when I'm like, all right, I need a detox.
So 24 hours?
The answer to your question is, I think you will notice just like a calmer state of mind, but we often don't do it. You don't do it. So you don't know what you're going to feel.
Right. Well, I think it's the hard part again, when you talked about like what makes someone change. Right. And it's like sort of like a clear, I think, positive outcome that has like somewhat of a guaranteed timeline. Like, why does everyone go to work every day? It's because like they get the paycheck every 2 weeks or whatever it is. And like, you go, you get the paycheck, you don't go, you don't. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, otherwise, why would everyone commit to doing that 9 hours a day? So I think like the clear, and it's tough. So that's why I think this particular thing is sort of tough, because it's not like everyone's the same, or if you put in this, you're going to get out that. And you're right. I do think the immediate feeling is discomfort, right? So that's not, it's the same thing with exercise. When I'm pushing that weight up, it doesn't feel like a massage. It feels like uncomfortable. And so does that moment where you're sitting at the red light and you're bored and want it to be over. Yeah.
You're impatient. Yeah. Or you're, laying in your bed and you don't really feel like reading your book and you're just like breathing. It's kind of like, this feels a little bit uncomfortable. But what I think happens is after you do it repeatedly, it starts to feel not only comfortable, but also like a recharge and a reset and like a freshening up for your brain, which we don't, for a lot of people, the only time that you're not consuming is when you're unconscious and asleep. Like there are a lot of people that are consuming media, whatever you want to call it. Even if you're fall asleep watching a show or fall asleep watching a podcast, you are consuming until the moment you lose your consciousness. And the second you wake up, you grab your phone and you're back, and your brain really doesn't get to process and rest.
Well, it's kind of like what you just said with the lifestyle thing. Like if you do it enough, that's just what you do.
Yeah. And I think people notice great improvements in sleep, especially if you do general screens. Like I'm sure everybody's heard this, but like if you limit screens before bedtime, you're not constantly stimulating yourself. And it allows your body to kind of settle and wind down and deal with what's already in there, which is 30, 40, 50 years of crap is already in there, let alone whatever you just saw on Instagram 5 seconds ago, or the dreadful birth story that you scrolled past that did kind of slip into your psyche. So, I'm a big fan. I've done this. It really is helpful. Even just managing other people's emotions. We talked about like how your phone kind of pulls you to manage the emotions of everyone who wants to talk to you. And if you don't answer them, like they're going to feel away or you're going to upset them, or it just helps you to kind of not have to handle life to just live life.
Okay. So what's the intention for when you want to grab the phone? Like I'm going to want to do as soon as we finish this recording.
Yes.
Been jonesing for it.
Yes. Well, it's more of a question, right? And this is what I've done with my groups is like asking yourself the question, what am I seeking to feel right now? And then when you get that answer, telling yourself, I can handle that. Like I can handle being bored. I can handle not knowing the answer to that question about what day the garbage is going to come, or whatever the thing is. Like I can handle not knowing that. I can handle, being bored in this moment. I can handle the fact that that tab is not closed. And then maybe that breath trick that we talked about just to kind of soothe yourself through it. Take a nice deep breath. Take an extra sip of air at the top. And then breathe out nice and slow. So noticing what the feeling is that you're trying to get and then telling yourself, I can handle that. So yeah, I would love it. Give it a try. Let us know how it goes. I'm probably due. I'm glad she wrote in. I'm probably due for a little detox day.
Or maybe even like, I feel like you could work up to that. 24 hours does seem like a long time if you're picking it up constantly. Maybe like an hour today, 2 hours tomorrow, whatever it is. Yeah.
Or even a good place to start is even if you don't change any of your behaviors, is just noting all of your pickups.
Right.
Even just counting all of your pickups.
I feel like they have an app for that.
Yeah.
Ironically.
Yeah. I'm sure there are apps to like help with all of this stuff, or that brick thing that you put on your fridge and you like lock your phone up, or, the first step is awareness. So even if you're just, okay, if you guys are listening today and you're like, I'm going to count how many times I just pick up my phone today. Just count. Even if you continue to pick up your phone, it'll at least make you aware of every time you're picking up your phone. It's like any addiction. Like I know people do food diaries, right? Like I'm going to write down everything that I eat. Why? So that I'm just like not mindlessly eating. I'm going to be aware of like what I'm eating instead of doing it without thinking, and think about like, okay, am I eating this because I'm actually hungry? Am I eating this because I'm sad? Whatever it is.
Like tracking is like the first step.
Yeah. So even if you don't change anything, just count how many pickups you have for the rest of the day. And then maybe tomorrow you can set yourself a limit. And the pickups I'm glad she brought up pickups, because it's not even like the time necessary. I mean, the time is one thing, you're just lost in an abyss, but the pickups are like, why? Sometimes it just feels like no reason at all.
It's like a pacifier or something. Like it's just soothing to know that you're not missing anything, I think.
Yeah.
I'll have this at the doctor's appointment because I go to a lot of doctors now, like very frequently.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll like put my stuff down and put my jacket up, whatever. And then I'm like going to the seat in the doctor's, like in the exam room. And then I'm like, I got to bring my phone. Like I can't sit on the,
can't just sit here.
What if the doctor doesn't come in for like 20 minutes?
Yeah. I remember I went for a mammogram, and you like take all your clothes off. You put them in your locker, and you're in your little gown, like in the waiting area. And they had like a bunch of women all waiting like that. And I had left I took my stuff off and I left my phone like in the locker, and like all the rest of the women that were in there were like on their phones. And I was just sitting there. I'm like, oh, thought we were kind of supposed to put all our belongings away. And it was, especially when other people are on their phone, and you'll notice this too. Pickups are contagious. Like if you're sitting in a room, you'll notice, like if Mike picks up his phone, that's part of that poll. Like now I'm going to pick up my phone.
I want to be alone. Right.
Yes. Yeah. Really interesting. Keep track of it.
Oversharing challenge.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Let's play some Triggered.
Hello, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. I've been an oversharing fan since day one and absolutely love you up. Congrats on the babies, Jordana. Speaking of babies, I have a triggered scenario for you. I, 29 female, just found out my ex-boyfriend, 33 male, is having a baby with his new girlfriend. That's already triggering. I dated him for about 2 years and we broke up in the middle for a few months because he said he didn't want to have kids anymore. That was a deal breaker for me. We got back together a couple of months later, and he decided he would be willing to have one kid. We broke up for the second time in March 2025. In the summer, again, he crawled back and decided he wanted to get back together. We hung out a few times and talked about what that would look like. Wanting 2 kids was a major part of that discussion for me. I seriously considered getting back together, but the amount of anxiety I felt told me this was a bad idea. I listened to my body, like Naomi always says. I told him I didn't want to get back together on August 8th. He was pretty rude after I said this, and I unfollowed him on everything but didn't block his number. Fast forward to today. My sister's coworker, who she works with about 1 time a month, tells her she is dating my ex-boyfriend and they are expecting an accidental baby in June 2026. If you do the math, he would have knocked her up within the 2 months after I said goodbye to him. I'm very distraught by this. He texted me on September 30th that a store we liked was closing. I vaguely responded and he didn't continue the conversation. She would have been pregnant at that point. How triggered can I feel about this? Having kids was such a major decision point in our relationship, and it seems crazy to be so careless about it after that. And I thought I was over this breakup months ago, Betch.
I can definitely see why this is triggering. Seems like it's the reason they broke up. I will say, though, this would confirm my feeling of I'm glad we broke up, just given that it doesn't seem like he's putting much care or attention into whatever he's doing now. Like,
yeah.
Would you want to be dating, having a baby with someone who is texting their ex about a place that they used to go together, like while seeing you? Or, you know, she said, and even the girlfriend said it was accidental. So it's not like he did it. He was like, fell in love and decided to have a baby with someone immediately.
Now I can't wait to be a father. Now that I've met the right woman, I'm so excited for this. Yeah.
Yeah. Still triggering regardless. I think very upsetting to like see someone sort of move on extremely fast and also over the thing that you broke up over.
Yeah. This is definitely triggering, especially, because that is why they broke up. And now he's doing that same thing. Although he did tell you he was willing to have one kid. So like, he didn't change that.
And it was an accident.
Yes. And it was an accident. But I think the bigger picture and probably why you were feeling anxiety is it doesn't feel good to feel like you have to talk someone into parenthood, because then there's this feeling of like, okay, once it gets annoying, it's kind of like, well, I didn't really want to do this in the first place. You kind of, pushed this on me, which is why I think this is such an issue for so many couples. So on the one hand, it's kind of like, all right, she's going to deal with this reluctant father.
Right. I don't think it's going to be all rainbows for them.
You chose not to deal with a reluctant father. And I think that's, it's interesting because I have a lot of patients that are dealing with dating someone that they really love, that they're in love with, where they differ about kids. Sometimes what I've seen happen is maybe there is an accident and you end up having a baby, and the person who wasn't ready or doesn't know, we've had a few of these questions where it's like, well, they don't know and they don't know when they're going to know. And I do think a lot of times people don't know until they're forced to know. They don't know if they want, or they're not ready until they're forced to be ready. So I do think sometimes there is this aspect of like, in theory, you're like, I don't think I want to do this, but you also might not want to, there's a lot of things in life that you're not ready for. You're not ready to lose your job, but you do. And you have to deal with it.
And maybe this is an easier way for him to get into it because the person expects a lot less from him because it's new and accidental.
For both of them. Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard. I think, he's going to figure it out, but it does feel a little bit safer to go into parenting with someone that's equally as excited as you are about it.
Yeah,
like that feels really nice to be like, we're in this together. When it's hard, we both agreed on it, versus when it's hard, you're afraid he's going to look at you and be like, I told you this was going to be really hard. Like I told you I wasn't ready for this.
Right. We're dragging someone into the next step. Yeah. And I mean, if there's any silver lining, I would think of this as closure on the relationship, in terms of, sometimes you break up over something like this and then you're kind of like, you've already broken up and gotten back together a few times. now at least you can be able to close the door on it. It sounds like he's fully
committed.
Yeah. I'd give this like a 8.
This is very triggering. You're going to find your person where they cannot. I mean, it happens always, right? You have this pregnancy announcement where you show the person the pregnancy test and they are like completely disappointed, or they even start like crying or getting upset or getting mad or blaming or whatever. And then you have the, first response commercial response where he picks you up and twirls you around. And it's like the most exciting thing in life. I think it's nicer to go into it with someone that's ready and looking forward to it. So I still think you made the right choice here, but yeah, definitely triggering.
All right, let's do one more. Jordana and Dr. Naomi, I have a triggered scenario for you that involves a pre-planned cruise vacation and a due date of a second grandbaby. I'm currently 35 weeks pregnant with my second baby. Backtracking to when I started to announce my pregnancy, I told my parents around the 13-week mark that my husband and I are expecting. The first question naturally from them was about the due date. It turned out that they actually booked a cruise vacation to depart on the day before my due date in February. They briefly mentioned how just a deposit was placed and they still had the opportunity to switch their dates. However, I didn't feel comfortable telling them to change the dates of their much anticipated vacation, so I told them they should proceed with their plans. My parents aren't retired yet. They work hard and really value their vacation time. To give you a bit of context too, when I had my first baby 2.5 years ago, my parents were incredibly overbearing. My son was the first grandchild in the family, and I also had a very traumatic birth. During a time where I needed support from them, all they wanted to do was see my son, hold him, take pictures, and even at one point told me that this experience isn't all about me. Needless to say, it affected our relationship since, as I don't feel like I can truly count on them. I'm approximately 5 weeks from having this baby, and my parents are going ahead with their cruise. Part of me feels like I'm dodging a bullet, and thankfully I don't need to put up with their potential antics during the birth of my second baby. However, a bigger part of me is triggered that they didn't feel the need or want to be physically present when their grandbaby is born. Should I just get over this, considering we're on 2 different pages when it comes to showing support after birth? Or can I feel triggered that my own parents didn't feel the need to change their vacation plans so they could be present for the birth of another grandbaby? Curious to hear your takes. Signed, maybe it is all about me, Betch.
This is hard. I think she has this fantasy of how she wishes that her parents would be, and they just aren't. I remember seeing a reel once, and it really was so sweet. It was like the mother had just given birth, and I guess it was the grandmother that walked in the room, and she walked right past the baby and like right over to the mother and was just like touching her face and like taking care of her and like didn't even, like wasn't even thinking about the baby. And I do think that there is this piece of giving birth and like, becoming a new mom where you do want this caretaking for you. So them not being there for the birth is kind of like, yeah, the baby will be there when we get back and we'll see the baby. The idea that you are going to be going through this thing and we're not going to be there for this enormous medical condition that you're going to be working through feels a little bit like you're being dismissed or your experience is being ignored, which I get. But
that being said, she did tell them they could go on the cruise.
Yeah, 100%. So that I totally agree. And that is a pet peeve personally of mine when someone's like, yeah, sure. No worries. Like, no problem. Don't do the thing. And then they're secretly, secretly resentful.
Like testing you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. For sure.
I agree with that. I think that if they just told her that they were going on they had already booked it.
Did ask her.
She said, don't change it. They didn't change it. It sounds like it was a little tense the last time. Maybe they kind of felt like, they'll give you some space and maybe, when they come back, you'll be like in a little bit of a better place. There's a possibility of that. And it's funny. I mean, it's funny because I always tell the story about like when Lila was born and the whole family was at the hospital.
Literally like 15 people.
Yeah. Like waiting for her to be born and all that stuff. As like the oldest first grandchild, which sounds like her son was. And then now, like, when a baby's born, we get a text.
Right.
It's like, a heart emoji.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
It's so funny. I just think, I mean, it's like a little, also, I think that's another part of it. It's like the novelty of like, I'm a grandma it's really, most people are a little bit self-motivated. So I think the first baby is like, I'm a grandparent. Like,
yes,
this is a new role for
identity.
me. Yeah. Yes. That's why I think your family members are a little bit more, a lot of the time, a little more excited about your baby than your friends, is because it can feel like I have a new niece. I have a new nephew. I have a new grandchild. It's like a little bit more, I mean, I think at the heart, most things are a little bit about how they affect you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I like get it. If I were them, I might still go. I don't know. How many other kids have been born since then?
Yeah. And look, I think I had that initial thought of like, okay, like you'll do your thing, you'll have your baby and we'll come see them as soon as we get back. I think I do think it is a little bit of an indicator of that level of care and closeness that you have with your parent about whether or not and here's the other thing. We've been discussing these dynamics where it's like, you're putting out this, like, I didn't, in the last episode, she didn't want to go on the trip, but she wanted to be invited, like, I don't really want you there, but I want you to want to be there. So then I can tell you like, no, it's better that you're not there actually, because you're annoying and you're overbearing. So I think when you're putting out a vibe in a relationship, you have to be able to tolerate that person's going to pick up the vibe and act accordingly. You can't put out this vibe of like, I really am putting up this boundary. I don't want you there. You're overbearing, or I don't even want to go on this trip with you because I would never want to spend that much time with you. And then also want them, like, nobody likes to be constantly rejected, especially as a parent. I think that probably is hard. And your parents probably picked up that they were annoying you. And like you said, we're like, okay, we'll come. We're not going to change our life to come so you can keep telling us that we're annoying and overbearing and
right. Maybe you
prefer us around.
I can also see them reading if you guys were fighting the last time, maybe they were reading you saying go on the cruise as
I'd rather not
go on the cruise.
Yeah.
Like I think you could easily see a triggered where someone says, I was so thrilled that they had already booked a cruise. And then I told them to keep it, and then they canceled it, and now they're going to be here again, and they're going to be so annoying.
Yes, I think this is an issue of you have like a fantasy for how you want your parents to show up, and then accepting the fact that they're not showing up that way. And this is a hard part of parenting that I'm going through now as I have an older child, where like, and I could see this happening with a birth where she'll be like, I'm going to tell you something, and I don't want you to make any suggestions or like have any advice, and I don't want you to do anything. Like, I've gotten to this point with Lila where we're like figuring out our mature relationship,
your teen mom relationship.
Yes. Yeah. And I need this reminder of like, okay, this is how she needs me to show up for her, in like a way of where I'm not going to try to protect her or fix it or do whatever. And I think sometimes maybe she says her mom was overbearing. So I think her mom was probably trying to be like, well, you should do this, and maybe you should do this, and you should go there. And if you can try to help her understand, obviously this birth maybe isn't going to be the time to do it, but like, this is what I need from you. And like when Lila tells me that, I really try to listen to her. It's very, very hard. And I still sometimes there's like a pull, to try to fix it or give an advice, or what you should do is like the worst. That's the last thing she wants to hear. Or you got to say this, or you've got to try. So I think that's what comes off as overbearing. So yeah, there's a part of this that if you're figuring out, I've discovered what I didn't like about that, and I need to, maybe your mom is capable of hearing, hey, when even if it's not about the birth, like when you come over with the baby and I'm telling you like, oh, he just won't sleep and I'm so exhausted, or like, he just won't take this bottle. I just need you to say something like, wow, that sounds really hard. Or like, is there anything I can do to help? Instead of, well, it's because you're using this bottle and it's because you didn't do this. And maybe you should try that. And you need blackout shades. And like, maybe you need to tell her what you need. And so you can get closer to the fantasy of the mother that you wish that you had. But if you're not going to communicate what that is, and you're also going to tell her, hey, go ahead and go on your vacation, and you can't be mad that that's what she's doing.
I'll give this like a 3 because you said go.
I agree. If she just said we're going and didn't offer to change it, then I would give it like a 5 or a 6. But because you told her to go,
it's already booked. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, they might think that's what you want because you said that.
And look, you're 5 weeks out. So, I mean, there is a part of this that's like, okay, deal with it going forward. But another option is 5 weeks out to say, you know what, Mom, I've been thinking. Part of why we struggled the last time is because I felt like you were trying so hard to make suggestions or make things better, or whatever it is that she's doing, and what I really need from you.
It sounds like they weren't paying it. She was upset that she wrote because they were only paying attention to her son and not her.
Okay. So maybe she could talk to her about, like the last time I felt like I could have really used a little more care from you. And I could have, I was feeling kind of weak and vulnerable. And I felt like a lot of it was just about the baby. And I could have used more care from you, or even something that's like cute. Like I kind of could use my mommy, just to let her know, like, maybe some vulnerable, like I just needed my mom in that time, and just communicate. Maybe you do want to say, if I'm being honest, I would really like for you to be there. And if it's too late to change your plans, I totally get that. But I think I was trying to be like kind of tough and independent and feel like I didn't need you. Or maybe I did feel a little disappointed last time because it was more about the baby. But yeah, there's a part of me that really wants my mom when I'm in that vulnerable state. So, maybe you could share that with her if you haven't already.
Yeah. And if you do that and she can switch it, great. And if it's too late, at least you've also said what you wanted to say. When she comes back, I'm sure she'll have a different vibe.
Totally. And I'm thinking about that, like I said, from this perspective as a mom who's growing to have like a teenage daughter, of like, I sometimes do need a little feedback. Like there's no handbook for how to deal with these things.
Right. It did sound like they again, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like the experience, like it's the parenting. She might be mourning the parents that she wishes they were. And like what they are is maybe like, again, there's a little bit more of like a narcissism to like, I'm a new grandma, then let me take care of my daughter versus going on this cruise.
Yeah. And taking pictures so she could show all her friends, which just feels like, yeah, I hear it. And you can, if you do choose to talk to her about it, you can kind of say, I shared with you like what was hurtful for me about this the last time. Your response felt like you were doubling down, and I would love for you to be here, but this is kind of what I need from you. But yeah, it's really hard especially when you do communicate what you need to your parents and they don't lean into it. It's hard.
Maybe it'll be good that they're not there.
It probably will, if they were annoying you by ignoring you, kind of.
Well, she said it's kind of like changed their relationship.
Yeah, she was really disappointed.
This might be worth a discussion after they get back from the cruise about the whole thing and what, like you said, the vulnerability of like, this is what I kind of felt like I needed you. This is what I felt like I got. But maybe almost like removing that from the like actual chaos of when a baby arrives.
Yeah. All right. Well, good luck. All right.
Yes.
That's our time.
Great work today.